This presentation considers 17 selected retellings and adaptations focused on Archimedes' life or particular episodes from his scientific career, published between 1959 and 2019. Many books aimed at children present Archimedes as a great polymath, whose scientific discoveries and inventions still matter nowadays. It is usually done in order to facilitate understanding of principles learned at school and familiarize the character of the great scholar as a person and not only a name from a textbook or encyclopedia. Although Archimedes is known best from his famous Eureka moment, what he did besides is quite difficult to fit in this short 15 minutes. So instead, let's move for a while to Greek Sicily and have a look on how his extraordinary character and his work was presented for the youngest audiences. I traced a few main narrative strategies employed in these adaptations. Presenting the scholar with use of historical characters as narrators, including Archimedes' own perspective, is the first. The second, with use of children characters, both contemporary to Archimedes and time travelers contemporary to the reader or viewer. And the third, from the perspective of the other narrator, presenting the story to children contemporary to the reader. Archimedes is also presenting using poetry or quasi-textbook strict informational formula adjusted, however, to the target age. It's worth mentioning that the visual aspect is usually equally important as the books and of course animations. Besides, the obvious literary aspects are also often supported by suggestive illustrations and schemes. As for the content, accordingly to the number of pages, either it explores as much information about Archimedes and his discoveries as possible, or it focuses on the selected episodes, discoveries, and aspects of his activity. The children's audiences are evidently supposed to benefit from these publications, as they all have informative and educational character, although some of them use the formula of hidden learning, combining history and science with entertainment and even having fun. Within 15 retellings of Archimedes' life and work, the first strategy is based on using a historical character as the narrator. First one, by Luca Novelli, Archimedes sue macchine da guerra, Archimedes and his war machines, is particular, as it is Archimedes himself who tells the story of his life since he was a boy playing on the beach in Syracuse. He recounts his discoveries in mathematics, geometry, and physics, but also describes the reality around him in Magna Graecia in the 1st century before Christ. Of course, Archimedes presents the famous episodes of the crown, and when he said the famous phrase, "Give me a lever," as the title is "And His War Machines," many of the machines built by Archimedes are listed, those that worked with water, with weights, but above all with human energy. The ones most stimulating the imagination are the devices used during the siege of Syracuse, including the spectacular burning mirrors, which according to the legend destroyed the Roman fleet, but no one has ever succeeded in recreating them, including Mythbusters. Another example for this strategy is Archimedes, Ancient Greek Mathematician by Susan Katz Keating, illustrated by Guido Tartarotti. The story is presented as a diary kept by Cicero when he was sent to govern Sicily. The great Roman searches Sicily for traces of his hero, Archimedes. Each wonder is set up as a kind of mini chapter. A few paragraphs of faux Cicero face a delightful cartoon-like illustrations. The watercolor and ink drawings are beautifully detailed and bring the story whatever verve and joyous life it has, while the text basically provides information, but is entertaining and easy to follow. The same strategy follows Archimedes, the man who invented the death ray, by Sue Rainer. In this book, it is Marcus Claudius Marcellus, a foe and admirer of Archimedes' genius, who looks back on his life and explains to his young son why Archimedes was possibly the cleverest person that ever lived. In his illustrated chapter book, Rainer describes and draws the life and work of the Greek scientist concerning his great inventions, not only focused on defending Syracuse from the Romans led by Marcellus. The second strategy engages children protagonists, which allows the child reader or viewer to identify with their peers and to receive answers for questions adults wouldn't ask nor answer. While children protagonists learn about Archimedes, contemporary readers or viewers benefit from their character and learn while reading about the ancient adventures of their peers. In Archimedes Takes a Bath by Joan Lexell, illustrated by Salvatore Murdocca from 1969, young Xanthius is given the job of making sure that absent-minded Archimedes eats and baths occasionally. His success has much to do with the formulation of Archimedes' principle. In historical fiction, Le Compagnon d'Archimède by Christian Dollard, illustrated by Jacques Pagnard from 1974, four Gallic children, Dumnorix, Vertiscos, Danae, and Briseis, are the protagonists. They escape from the Romans, hide on a galley which sails to Syracuse, and there they meet Archimedes and soon become his companions. Under the Roman siege, they learn qualities of the old man's heart and his incomparable genius, which opposes Marcellus's army. Other French historical fiction with children protagonists is Qui a tué Archimède, Who Killed Archimedes by Sophie Serroni-Vivien from 2019, which combines history, science, and investigation. Publius, son of Marcellus, and Myrrha, Archimedes' favorite student, investigate together a plot leading to Archimedes' death. Myrrha explains to Publius the scientific aspects and discoveries of the murdered scientist. What Publius and Myrrha don't know is that Archimedes is watching them carefully, eager to see them solve the riddle of his death. The book contains diagrams drawn in the clay, explaining the multiple contributions of Archimedes to science. Children as time travelers are protagonists of Kolia, Olia i Archimed by Yuri Prytkov from 1972. In this animation, children from Moscow take part in a few scenes from Archimedes' life. It is Kolia who pulls a ship alone. They see a screw pump watering and Kolia explains how it works. They listen to Archimedes' tale retrospection explaining water displacement. And finally, they experience the siege with the use of war machines. When Syracuse is taken with help of a Trojan horse, or like you see here, Syracusan horse, and the scholar is about to be killed, time reverts. The soldiers go back and children return to their flat in Moscow. Another example of using child characters when explaining scientific discoveries to children audience is well-known and popular worldwide series by Albert Barrier, Il était une fois le découvert, Archimède et le Grec, where, according to the series' flame, Maestro tells interesting stories to a group of children. They are not main protagonists here, but rather represent the child viewer. This time, Maestro, in an approachable, simple way, presents to them the leading scientist in classical antiquity and citizen of Syracuse, and at the same time, the civilized world. The Romans, however, represent evil. They are shown as insidious aggressors, but in a satirical manner corresponding with a series' frame, not entirely seriously. The first strategy shows the perspective of the other narrator, presenting the story for children contemporary to the reader, usually omniscient and all-seeing. The oldest from examined novels is Syracuse Oriash, The Giant of Syracuse by István Sava, illustrated by Tamás Szeczko. This historical fiction, popular in countries of the former Eastern Bloc, depicts the entire life of Archimedes from early childhood. It starts and ends with the very same scenes when Archimedes asks not to disturb his circles. As the title, Sava reuses the epithet geometrical briareus according to Plutarch, given to Archimedes by Marcellus. Sava portrays the great Greek by combining ancient sources with fictional elements and adds secondary characters to make the novel more interesting for children. The discoveries and inventions are described easily and clearly explained in order to spark the young reader's interest in science. The novel portrays Archimedes firstly as an extraordinary child, then a flawless man, scholar, and citizen. As an academic, when he debates with others about the purpose of science, he states that his goal is not to make a profit from science, nor even to use science for people's benefit, making their life better and more beautiful, but rather the discovery of truth itself, even a small piece of the truth. He does not care about fame or a scientific career, but about pure knowledge. He is curious about the rules governing the world and exalts when he manages to reveal a small fragment of them, or when he understands something he did not know before. What characterizes Archimedes, in addition to his interest in knowledge, is his modesty and attitude towards other people. It is impossible not to notice that the author strongly emphasizes social issues and presents his protagonist as empathetic to human misfortune. Archimedes often spends time with simple craftsmen for whom he constructs devices facilitating their hard work, such as a lever for a woodworker replacing 6 men working with heavy objects. Moreover, the inspiration for Archimedes' crew came here from observing an Egyptian farmer in Siena inefficiently working all day watering his fields, although in the Hypnosophistae, Athenaios describes the screw as being invented out of a need to remove the bilge water from Syracusia, the luxury ship designed by Archimedes at Hiero's request. After revealing the fraud of the Golden Crown, Hiero wants to punish the dishonest goldsmith by selling him into slavery. Archimedes does not want to feel responsible for anybody's enslavement and asks Hiero to spare this man. In his mind, he promises a hecatomb to Zeus if he manages to convince Hiero to punish the man another way. The hecatomb of oxen cost him a lot of money and impoverishes the estates left to him by his father, but he is still full of compassion for every human being, strengthening his image as a just man, a giant in everything he does. The next illustrated biography is Archimedes and the Door of Science. In a biography full of lively incidents, Bendick introduces Archimedes as a mathematician, inventor, and great pioneer of modern scientific method. Against the backdrop of his life and culture, the author discusses Archimedes' work, his discoveries, and the knowledge later based upon it. The simple, often humorous illustrations and diagrams greatly enhance the text and help the readers see how science is a part of everyday life. Scientific and mathematical principles are presented in a flowing, easy-to-read manner. The book is still in print, last one in 2018. The similar way of presentation can be seen in Archimedes and his wonderful discoveries from 1963. The book presents the life and legends, the discoveries and the applications of the discoveries of Archimedes to mathematics and mechanics. The reader benefits from many suggestions for experiments to prove the Archimedean principles while using simple, easily obtainable materials. These simple experiments described in the text are awesome ways for kids to learn. Besides historical fiction, the authors sometimes use a textbook or a fact book manner, where the author, narrator, is omniscient and all-seeing in order to give children the answers they could ask for and to facilitate learning. The Groovy Greeks is in fact not an ordinary fact book that offers an engaging alternative to traditional history books. Genre, as defined by Deary himself, is a fact book with jokes. The books of Horrible History series offer a combination of comical misadventures and gory or otherwise disgusting episodes and practices from history. The humorous approach is central, as Deary intended to write a joke book about history for children. The book is not focused on Archimedes only. Groovy Greeks is presenting 1,000 years of Greek history through quizzes, jokes, and fun facts. It concludes with the arrival of the Romans and the story of Archimedes' death. Quote, a good example of what the world lost when the rotten Romans took over from the Groovy Greeks, end of quote. While the historical narrative is generally accurate, some of the anecdotes presented as facts are well-established folk myths, like Archimedes' burning mirrors, still very attractive to the young reader, as we have seen before in Luca Novelli, Archimede le sue macchine da guerra, Schreiner, Archimedes, the man who invented the death ray. A similar approach as in Horrible History is used by Wojciech Mikołuszko in Wielkie Eksperymenty dla Małych Ludzi, where Archimedes is only one among many scientists listed in the book, and the only one ancient scholar. The chapter is focused only on the one moment, the famous Vitruvian anecdote, and the experiment the child reader can make with water displacement. As Mikołuszko writes, the described discovery was not only the famous discovery later named Archimedes' principle, but also a significant signal that experimenting is an important part of making discoveries. The last educational and strictly informative book about Archimedes is Archimedes and His Numbers, educational material published in 2017 within the Baby Professor series. What is beyond other categories and narrative strategies is using poetry to facilitate remembering some facts about ancient Greeks, including Archimedes. In a collection of short poems about ancient Greeks by Paul Pero, the author cannot do without the most eminent Greek scholar. However, Archimedes is just mentioned without elaborating any further. Last but not least, Archimedes is also present in children's books as a reference and inspiration for creating other characters named after him. This is the case of Mr. Archimedes from the book by Pamela Allen, where she shows how Archimedes' principle works without calling it a principle. Mr. Archimedes takes a bath with his three animal friends, kangaroo, wombat, and goat, and the water always overflows. Using a measure and taking turns getting out, they finally discover water displacement with use of irregularly shaped objects. The last character, called Archimedes, is Archimede Tirelu, an inventor from a family of inventors and thusly named after the famous Greek. Overall, Archimedes is such an interesting character that even selected facts from his life are enough for a book or animation. The motives chosen by the authors as potentially most attractive for the young audiences are the anecdote about discovering Archimedes' principle, constructing various war machines, including the legendary death ray, pulling a ship with one hand, inventing Archimedes' screw, and surprisingly, his unfortunate death. Regardless of the narrative strategy adopted, all the texts find Archimedes as a figure very attractive for children and in unison place the brilliant inventor in the scientific pantheon of all ages, while presenting his life and works from various perspectives to next generations of readers. Thank you.